So, guys, everybody on the call, I think knows me. My name's Jeremy Parzan. I've been writing about Italian food and wine for a little while now. And later in the evening, we're going to talk about Artusi, Pellegrino Artusi, cookbook author. I'm really excited to tell you about that because I teach Pellegrino Artusi when I teach over in Italy at the Slow Food University. But first, we're going to do a seminar on two of Italy's great food products. You know, has anybody ever read the cookbook author Arthur Schwartz? I see, of course, Francesco's nodding his head because, of course, we both know Arthur. He's such a character. Lives in Brooklyn. He lived not far from where I lived in Brooklyn. But he always says, you know, the true cuisine of Italy is Southern Italian cuisine. That's the cuisine. Northern Italy is defined by its food products, right? And today we're going to taste two of the greatest food products, Prosciutto di Parma and Grana Padano. Whenever I teach in my class or I talk at a tasting, I talk about terroir, I always talk about things like, before I talk about wine, I talk about Prosciutto di Parma, I talk about Grana Padano, because these are two food products that can only be made in the local terroir, that unique confluence of climate, exposure, soil type, and of course, human intervention, human tradition, right? We're going to taste two of the greatest expressions of terroir tonight. We're so lucky to have Francesco Lupo. I'm very proud to have dubbed him myself the prosciutto whisperer. He's been an ambassador. Francesco Lupo has been an ambassador for the Prosciutto di Parma consortium for some time now. He's also working now with the Grana Padano consortium. And I'm going to give the floor, you know, pour yourself a little glass of wine. Remember, go get the Grana, the little wedge of Grana, take it out because that cheese was not included in your prosciutto package. Francesco, the floor to you. Tell us what's sexy about Prosciutto di Parma.
So everything's about sexy about Prosciutto di Parma. The best part is eating it. I'm going to share a small presentation from the consortium, which will basically help to answer most of the questions that we all have about Prosciutto di Parma in general. Just bear with me because are you guys able to see the slides? Jeremy?
Not yet.
You need to share your screen, Francesco.
I'm trying to. For some reason, hold on one second. I knew this was going to happen. But everything was working fine until...
we had to see everybody's beautiful faces.
I know, that was perfect. All right, now we should be able to do it now. You able to see it now?
No, we're still just seeing.
Okay, just 1 second then.
And it's okay, guys. Has anybody ever been on a Zoom call where something went wrong? Not me.
This is it. This is it. And it was working fine until I had to remove it. Share screen. Okay. Share screen. I'm sharing screen. Files. Advanced. Basic. And let's see. Okay.
There we go. Now you're sharing.
All right. Okay.
We're good to go.
Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is about Prosciutto di Parma is one of the most iconic product that Italy has to offer. Actually, you say Prosciutto di Parma, you identify a country, a culture, a way of eating that's very unique to the Italian continent. I mean, to the Italian peninsula. So Prosciutto di Parma is one of the first PDO. First of all, it starts out as a consortium. Most of the PDOs or the product that are unique to Italy are
identified. Francesco, I'm going to interrupt. Please, guys, please do not forget to mute yourself just so we can eliminate some of the noise. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I know Zoe might jump in and mute you. Thank you. Go ahead, Francesco.
Anyway, let's start again. We start with the consortium. What is a consortium? In order to have a PDO, you need to have certain parameters of productions that need certified by the European community. The consortium decides how to and what defines the demographic of the area where the product can be considered unique or because of the area. So in the 1963, the first consortium that was formed was the Consortium Prosciutto di Parma. He took about 23 producers, 23 Italians got together and trying to decide for the well-being of a product to set aside all the animosity that they have by being neighbors and always saying that the product is better than others. One of the things that is done, why a consortium will create that, is to make sure that the consumer gets protected, doesn't get sold a inferior product that may use or sounds like. Unfortunately, in the U.S., we have a lot of Italian sounding products that are not even up to par to the real thing, and it really sometimes creates an image of the products that it's not what it's supposed to be. The consortium today is under 45 producers. Only about 40 of them are allowed to sell in the U.S. What does the consortium does? It promotes and protects, provides technical assistance, ensure compliance from the breeder. That means that every aspect of the production is certified, guaranteed, starting from the ingredients, from the pigs to the finish step. They're all PDOs. What that means, a PDO is a certification that the European community started in the late 90s. It certifies, identifies geographical defined products from all over Europe. It could be wines, it could be fruit, could be meats, could be cheeses, oils. Why? What is a PDO? Guarantees that every aspect of the production is done in that specific area. Why is that important? Because the uniqueness of the terroir, or the uniqueness of the elevation, the uniqueness of the breeze that comes in from the ocean, adds an extra flavor to a specific product that cannot be reproduced anywhere else. This goes for wines, this goes for fruit, it goes for meats, because when you're curing prosciutto, we expose it basically to air. The air of Parma is what makes it unique. And once you see a PDO on the label, you are guaranteed that the product is what it is. What makes it so special? There's only 4 ingredients. I mean, 2 ingredients in prosciutto di Parma that are physical: pork and sea salt. The other 2 is air and thyme. Air is important because it adds a flavor, and the thyme is because if you don't give the right time to the product, you will not be able to taste accordingly. It needs to be cured. It needs to take a taste time to develop all those flavors that we look into it. This is the production area. The production area, only the product that's made in this specific area, is actually right below Parma, is identified as prosciutto di Parma. And the reason is because you have the Apennine Mountains on this area, you have a valley, the Langherano Valley on this part, and this is open to the Adriatic Sea. Sounds very complicated, but it's not, because you have the cool breeze that comes from the mountains that can converge into this area. You have the saltiness of the Marittimo, which is a wind that comes off the Adriatic Sea that adds flavor to the product, and the mild temperature that's created into this microhabitat creates a very, very unique product. At the end, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Production area, we discussed what the production area was. The air, basically what surrounds Parma is what makes this product unique. There's other products in Italy that looks like prosciutto, but there's only one prosciutto di Parma. There's a lot of prosciutto crudo, which means it's a pure ham. That could be from Piacenza, that could be from San Daniele. It would add the terroir adds a definite flavor that it's not able to be reproduced anywhere else but in Parma. We have to start with the finest ingredients, and the finest ingredients is Italian pigs. In Parma, don't have the space to breed as much pigs that they need, so some of the pigs are allowed to be bred outside of the Parma area, but they have to be identified and certified breeders. There's about 3,500 breeders throughout Italy that do for Parma. They get selected from day one. They get harvested about 9 months of age, about 350 pounds. There's only 3 breeds that are allowed to be that. One is White English, Duroc, and Landrage. Those are pigs that have to be at least 400 pounds Those are the typical white pigs that you see around. They're not like the Spanish, the black pigs of Spain. Those are much smaller, will not be good for prosciutto di Parma. So one of the things I identify the uniqueness of the product is actually what it's made with. They're all fed all natural fed because being the first ingredient, the only main ingredient, you don't want to start with an ingredient that's been contaminated with product or with toxins that would affect the flavor. So it's very important that the feed is all natural and there is no animal byproduct that gets fed to the pig because that would affect the flavor. Completely traceable. Why is important? So we can read in every leg where it came from, where it was slaughtered or harvested, who made it, and if it's a real product. So this identifiers here, starting with this is actually the social security of the piglet. It will tell you where the piglet was raised, what farm, what time of the year. You actually identify that. The PP that you may see on a leg when you go to the deli, that will see where the animal was harvested, because we want to make sure that the animal is not being mistreated on the way to get harvested. And this identifies the producers, because we need to make sure that the producers are part of the consortium. But the most important identifier of all is the crown. Without the crown, there's no prosciutto di Parma. So that's, and that is the final touch, because that's what's important when you go to the deli and you want to see that the prosciutto that they're taking out has the crown on it. Because if it doesn't have a crown on it, it's just prosciutto crudo that came God knows from where. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, there's been an influx of prosciutto fakes from Italy that looks like prosciutto, but they don't have the crown on it, and they get sold as prosciutto di Parma. The difference in price is about 70%. So you're basically getting cheated in big numbers if you not ask for identifiers. These are the farms where the pigs are bred. As you can see, everything is north of Rome, simply because the temperature affects the animal. So we don't want the animal to be, suffering from heat, because it will not create a good meat to work with. The curing process is very simple. Pork and sea salt is only the salt is only there for about 28 days. Then it gets power washed and then reapply for another 28 days. But after that, that's it. Doesn't get that much salt. So prosciutto di Parma really doesn't get that much salt. The salt is there to start the drying process. The maestro salatore is one of the most important people there, because the computers cannot reproduce the ability to read the weight and how much salt the leg needs. If he puts too much salt, it will dry out. If he puts less salt, the leg will become spoiled. So it's very important. This is one of the most important people in the salmificio. One of the things is that traditionally during this time of the year, October, November, is when animals will get harvested. So they will be harvested once a year and then be ready for consumption a year later. Now, with technology, and the consumption that's going on, we don't have the time to wait. So we have to reproduce the 4 season in the curing rooms. And that's what we do. This is what our curing room looks like. About 3 months into the curing process, they get brought into the prosciuttificio. If you notice, there is open windows. The reason is open windows. What we say is the most important curing flavor of all. It's the air of Parma. This is to capture the air, because that will add the flavor, the uniqueness of the prosciutto di Parma. About toward the end, it gets grease, which is salt and pork fat. That's to defend it from, getting bacteria infection, and to cure at about the same time as the rest of the leg. So in order to have a more precise, concise way of curing. And this is the final part, the curing. That's the end. This is what a prosciuttificio, many of you hopefully had the pleasure of being a prosciutto manufacturer. The aroma that emanates, you get angry I get angry just by looking at the picture. The picture is like asking me to eat something, because it's very inviting. This is the last step. And the last step, those are prosciutto, but not prosciutto di Parma. You know why? Because they have not been tested by an outside auditor. The outside auditor will come in at the minimum age of 14 months and would do some testing on the product. One of the things that they use to do the testing, unfortunately, when I do the class live, you may understand, is the horse bone. And the reason why the horse bone is because it's very porous. So it doesn't smell like anything. But once you purge the meat, it will tell you if it's cured or not. And that's the eye tech that they use in Parma to identify the product being ready or not. Only at that point, when everything has been met, the firebrand gets applied to it. This gets applied on the last step. If something happens to this, the firebrand doesn't get applied. And that's basically it for Prosciutto di Parma. I mean, this is some of the storage information. The best part is, hopefully all of you have some Prosciutto di Parma in your package. When, we saw a slicer in the back. The reason why slicers, that flywheel slicers are very important is because they don't eat up, they don't create heat over in the friction like as an electric slicer, so it doesn't affect the product. When you look at a Prosciutto di Parma, it has to be translucent, as you can see. Actually, I was very lucky. My deli was able, for the first time in 5 years, to do the right thing. And it has to doesn't have to look dry. It has to be very subtle. If you smell it, you can actually smell what I was talking about, the winds of the Adriatic Sea. There's some of that aroma that comes with it. And at that point, you just put it in your best part of my days when I taste it. It melts away. It's not supposed to be salty. If it's salty, that means there's something wrong with it. It's supposed to be sweet with a faintness of salt into it.
Francesco, let me, if I may, jump in. Delicious, by the way. I mean, I know this wasn't sliced where you are. It was sliced here. And I got to say, Giancarlo Ferrara, the chef owner of Amalfi, did a great job. Tracy, my wife Tracy, and I, one of our biggest problems is, we go to our local deli. I'll just leave it at that. And there's someone at the deli and you say, oh, I want to buy a pound of prosciutto di Parma, and they slice it too thin and it turns into a big mush, or they slice it too thick and it loses. What should we be, what's the parameters we should be looking for? What's the thickness that should be sliced? Or I also find people don't trim it correctly.
Usually on the slicers, when you go to the delis, should be no more than one. It goes the knob goes from 1 to 12. It should be on 1. If it goes anywhere above 1, it's too thick, and you don't want it to have a thick prosciutto because the flavors are overpowering, and we won't be able to appreciate it.
To me, the half of the pleasure of prosciutto is the texture.
Yes, it's the texture. Like I say, I mean, as you can see it, you can see the light, but it's not transparent. You understand? It's I say it's less than an inch cut. I mean, it's about half an inch, maybe less. And it doesn't break apart as easily. If it's too thin, like he says, I see it many times that they slice it, they put it on paper, and then when you try to take it home, it becomes a pain to move it apart. So it's important that when you purchase Prosciutto di Parma, you know who the deli is, and if they don't know what they're doing, you have to find somebody that does. Because I've had delis that cut the meat with the skin on, which is a no-no. I had delis that cut with the yellow fat, which is oxidized fats that gives very, very off flavors. So traditionally, where you buy your Prosciutto di Parma is a place that basically is where that you go all the time, because they know your way, the way you want to cut and not. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, even in Italy, it's not only in the U.S., not too many people really know how to cut it. But once in a while, you find, I found in the middle of America, in Kansas City once, I thought I was going to have the worst experience. I found a guy that knew precisely what to do without even telling him to do. So
you find there's someone in every city. And hey, Francesco, can you stop sharing the screen so we can see everybody and get some questions from the floor?
Hold on a second.
Let me just let him stop.
Right.
Hey guys, welcome back. What do you guys think about this prosciutto? Anybody enjoying it? Or it's sliced perfect. This prosciutto is in perfect condition, in my personal opinion. Anybody want to jump in?
I just want to was the producer. I know the producer of the prosciutto. The producer of the prosciutto, it's one of the oldest family of producers in Italy, in the Langherano area. Their curing rooms are actually located right across from the castle of Langherano. If you have been to Parma, there is a castle, a medieval castle that overlooks the plain. But the best locations, sometimes that's why you choose prosciutto based on the curing location, because depending on what kind of flavors are you looking for, some of the producer will reflect that. And the producer that you're actually tasting is one of the most unique in location, because it's very close to the castle, high elevation, faces the Adriatic Sea, so it gets a lot of that umami flavor that you may taste.
Mhm.
Like if you tasted a different brand, like if you went to Central Market or HB Market, there is another brand there from another producer that actually is opposite from this producer in the valley. It's on the other side of the valley, and the product tastes totally different. That is the uniqueness of prosciutto di Parma.
Yeah, prosciutto's like wine. It's terroir. It's terroir driven. What part of the valley? Who wants to jump in with a question or a comment or?
I've got a question, Jeremy.
George,
Where can we find?
No talking about prosciutto di San Daniele, Giorgio. I know where this.
No.
You can talk.
Where can we find this prosciutto in Houston? What's
prosciutto di Parma in Houston? Actually, you're very lucky because Houston, despite other city in the country, has good retailers that use the product. You can go from Central Market, AHB Market, some of the Italian delis. I think Jimmy's is down there. I don't want to confuse it with Dallas. So
Jimmy's.
No, but I was asking about this particular producer.
Actually, that producer, because of the distributor that is in Houston, sells it to most of the delis in the Texas area. So 90% of the time, when it stays among ourselves. The name of the brand is Galloni. So if you ask for it, you ask for Galloni.
All right, thank you.
That's a great question, George.
And actually, it used to be in Whole Foods, but I think since Whole Food has been having some issues, it's no longer there. But basically, in general, most of the prosciutto di Parma, as long as the real prosciutto di Parma, is what it is. HB Market, you have a brand called Fontana, and another brand that's Tanara. Those are wonderful brands. They have uniqueness of flavors that sometimes it's best to have. Don't forget, prosciutto di Parma has 3 ages. Most of the ages that you get sold in the U.S. is between 16 and 18 months, which is not the maximum in flavor profile, because a lot of the flavors are not really developed yet. But then when you go to 20 months, or 28 months, the older it gets, the better it is. It depends how old the product is, too. That's another thing that you should be looking for. If you're cooking with it, I would suggest you cook with a prosciutto that's younger, because those don't overwhelm your dishes with any flavor, with that strong flavor. If you're going to use it for a charcuterie board or for sandwiches, I will go with the older aging of the prosciutto.
Awesome.
But be assured that your retailers do have the real thing and they do know what they're doing. Now, in order to find this, I will have to ask Friel Landa, but that will be a disservice to all the other members of the consortium. So, you can ask Maurizio. Maurizio can direct you to the importers. The importer can actually let you know. I took a ride with the importer once, and we went all over Houston. So I know that a lot of people in Houston, a lot of the Italian delis in Houston carrying the product.
I was wondering what constitutes young versus old in terms of aging. What kind of time period is there between those two?
Minimum aging is 12 months. So anything less than 12 months is not considered prosciutto di Parma. It's too young, doesn't have any flavor. You're only tasting raw meat, basically. 12 to 16 is about 80% of what comes into the U.S. market. And it's like a teenager. The flavors, it's like they think they're adults, but they're not really adults yet. They're getting there. So what I will suggest is, and this is the movement that we're pushing people to go to, is to find older, retailers that are selling 20, 24 months, 36 months. I mean, if you had the pleasure of being in Parma anytime soon after this little mishap of a year, I would suggest you go to Via Farini, which is off the main street of the main square of Parma. There is a couple of salumeria there that have prosciutto that's 46 months. And you can actually sit and enjoy with a nice bottle of wine. You can have a nice plate of prosciutto, and that will be your full experience. Or you can actually visit one of the producers, and they will do the same for you. They will make you taste the different ages. Always remember, the older the prosciutto is, and how you identify that. Actually, there's one of the metal tag as the aging on the prosciutto, and that will indicate how old the product is. So,
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me.
Francesco, I have a quick question, just a curiosity. First of all, I agree about the terroir, what you said. It's like for the wine, you don't drink the wine, you drink the place.
Yes.
But the curiosity is, okay, our grandfather, they used to cut in Italy prosciutto with a knife.
Yes.
So what's the difference between the hand cut with knife and the slicer that you use today?
All right.
Any difference?
I'll tell you what the difference is, because traditionally when I do the Masterclass, I slice with a slicer and then I slice by hand. And the reason is because there is two schools of thought there. When you go to Parma, either they have a Burkle in the kitchen or they have a Morsa. Morsa is a prosciutto holder. And the reason is that not having the Burkle, you can cut the prosciutto by hand. What is the difference? The difference is that when you cut by hand, the product has to be at least 36 months. So you're already working with a wonderful product that, just by smelling alone, satisfy your senses. When you start cutting into it, because you actually have control of the parts that, because the prosciutto has different flavors in different parts. So by cutting it, you can actually access those parts a little bit easier. And traditionally when you're slicing by hand, you actually cut it a little thicker. It's that totally opposite of the slicing by slicing machine, and it's because the texture experience is part of the flavor. So that's the main difference. So if you want to start cutting prosciutto at the age of that's younger, you're not going to get that experience. You actually, you're doing a disservice to yourself. But when you have a beautiful slicer, then you can do 16, 18 months. That's fine.
And guys, I hate to jump in here, but we do got to keep moving because we got a lot of ground to cover. But how amazing is this? Is this prosciutto delicious or what? I thought this, prosciutto can, it has to be stored right. It has to be prepared right. And this just really nailed it. It's delicious with the Prosecco. I know we're going to hear what a great pairing. I mean, right now I'm just in heaven. Little prosciutto, a little bit of bread, and a little glass of Prosecco.
I just want to put a side note there. Traditionally, prosciutto and Parmigiano, Grana, were used to basically hold you off until the main meal was cooked, because people would travel from many ways. So the aperitivo, or it was because people were coming off traveling tired. It was still a long way from them to finish cooking, so they had in order to refresh themselves with some wine. There was that great pairing. Yes, sparkling wines always do very well with salumi in general. Even my favorite is Lambrusco, because it's the correct pairing because of the minerality of it. But you can actually put any other. You can put French cavas, Italian sparkling from Sicily, Italian sparkling from Trentino. It will work well because the acidity, the bubbles will cleanse your palate and for the next bite.
It's a brilliant pairing. The Prosecco is very salty, and it's great with the gentle saltiness of the. And I just want to say hi to a couple of people. That was Jeff Balke and Kathy Matisow, who asked the question earlier. They're both local writers. We had Giorgio Kaflish is one of our local wine educators and a wine specialist, wonderful wine educator here. And of course, we had Osvaldo Pascolini, who's related to the chamber, By the way, Alessandra Salvatore, his better half, is the one who put this whole evening together. I just wanted to give some shouts out to some of the people who were jumping on here. Francesco, only because it's time to move on to Grana Padano.
Yes.
Let's move on to Grana Padano. And
Yes,
I promise we're going to take, after Grana Padano, we'll take a little bio break. So
right.
don't, just stay put. We're going to hear about some Grana Padano.
Are you able to see the slides?
We are not seeing your shared screen yet.
All right, just 1 second, because I'm technological. I'm good at slicing prosciutto by hand, but I'm not that good at slicing it. All right, screen.
Jeremy, I would like to give a tip to everybody, because I'm coming from that region. Our grandfather, they didn't have vacuum machine. So to conserve the prosciutto, if you have at home, you put face down in a plate and you put olive oil around. The olive oil doesn't let the air going in, and also is keeping soft the first. So the trick is, and normally it's better to keep the prosciutto in the like in the wine cellar, because too cold, like the refrigerator is too cold for the prosciutto. So
But just Brando's talking about for people who go, who's heading to Central Market right now to buy a whole thigh for $350.
Actually,
what we're talking about is when you have the whole thigh. I've seen people do that too. It'll and you don't want to put it in the refrigerator; it'll get too dry.
I want to do some correction, because there's a couple things that can damage the product. First of all, you really don't want to use any olive oil with prosciutto, because the olive oil will oxidize and will give a flavor that very off.
No, just the surface.
No, I know. But basically, what you're supposed to do is, with the face of the prosciutto, is then cut the first slice off and don't eat it. Give it to use it to tortellini with it, something else, but not to be eaten at the moment. And then when you keep in the refrigerator, when they slice prosciutto, when you buy prosciutto slice, it really lasts about 24 hours, no more, because it dries out and becomes very leathery. So if you are organizing a party, don't buy prosciutto slice 3 days before. It has to be done on the same day, or at least 24 hours early. Right. Now, you guys able to see the screen?
We are able to see the screen, and I will remind people one more time that the cheese that came with the prosciutto is not the cheese that we're tasting. The cheese we're tasting is
the cheese that we're tasting is the little triangle that says Grana Padano. As you can see, has the DOP symbol underneath, and it has the Grana Padano symbol on top. It is a triangular shape, and not the half moon shape cheese that you find. The other one is provolone, which was provided by Fattoria Cremona for this evening, which is, I would like to thank Fattoria Cremona for sponsoring part of the evening.
Jeremy, I just want to jump in. I just want to say that the cheese inside the box of prosciutto is provolone picante dolce from the same Fattoria Cremona.
Yes.
Oh, great. Great.
Okay.
I have my mouth full of Grana.
It's okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Now, as we were talking before, is Grana Padano is another DOP. Actually, Grana Padano is the #1 DOP in the world for production of products. It's the biggest DOP in the market. He started out, the history of Grana Padano goes back at least 1,000 years. In the Po Valley, the monks, the Cistercian monks, were producing this cheese to work with the excess milk that they had. One of the things that Grana Padano has is actually made with skimmed milk, so it's highly healthy and provides a lot of energy and proteins without the side effect of cholesterols and many other things. Now, for a lot of people that are lactose intolerant, Grana Padano is actually a cheese that you can eat, because of the lactose is already being, it's not there any longer as any other cheeses. This is what a Grana Padano looks like. It's about an 80-pound wheel before it gets portioned. The ratio of milk per kilo is 10 liters of milk for 1 kilo. So it's 10 to 1. We start out with about 800 liters of 400 liters of milk to get an 40 kilo form of Grana Padano. Grana Padano, this is a DOP, the symbol of the DOP. In the Parmesan and the Prosciutto di Parma was the crown. Here you have a diamond that says GMP, Grana Padano. As you can see, as the DOP, the origin of denomination protected, which that means the Grana Padano can only be made those specific areas because there's a uniqueness in the air, in the minerals of the terroir, the cows, the milk, everything that comes to the perfect storms create the perfect product, but it can only be in that specific geographical area. Grana Padano cannot be reproduced. Unfortunately, Grana Padano is one of those cheeses that you find all over the U.S. As a Parmesan. That doesn't mean anything unless it says Grana Padano on the skin or on the packages. As you can see, it's not Grana Padano. Grana Padano, when it gets graded, it will have the symbol on it. It doesn't come in a green can, with a green can that doesn't have any Grana Padano on it. So the Grana Padano starts the same process. They collect the milk from the night before, they mix it in with the milks from the early morning. They get screamed. It gets seated in a cauldron. The name Grana means grain, and one of the reasons why is a typical when they cut the curds, they cut the curd about the size of a grain. That's why the name Grana Padano or Grana style cheeses of Italy. Once the curd are pressed and formed into a rhomboid form, there's a plastic. Now it's plastic. Used to be metal. Band that goes around it that forms those dots that with ages become darker that identify the product. Now, the same thing with the Prosciutto di Parma is with Grana Padano. You can actually, by looking at the form, you can actually read what old the product is, who made it, how it was made. All right, the bottom part here, you see what it says, March 14. This forms was made in March 2014. So if we cut into this, if we had this form here now, it will be about 6 years old and more. And the reason why you want to identify the age gives you an idea of the flavor, but actually means if, the older it is, the more expensive it gets. So you really don't want to pay for a younger, an older Parmigiano, a Grana for a younger Grana. Because there could be a little difference in price. The firebrand is put, which is this year, only at the end too, when everything has been done. During the course of the curing, the forms are turned every day in order to age and cure about the same time. Like I say, there is 3 different ages in the Grana. The first one is 10 months, which is the one that you guys tried. What that means, younger Grana, you will have more of a milkier flavor. It's almost drinking a glass of milk sometimes, but with a little hint of umami that comes through. The older it gets, the sweeter it's going to get, and it intensifies that sweetness, saltiness of the nuttiness of the flavor. So if you're going to be grading or cooking with it, the 10 months is great. As the same as the other DOP product. The older it gets, the better it is. You really don't want to do anything else with it. One of the things I like, is this was identified will be at 10 to 12 months. This says ultra 16 mesi. This is 16 months, and then here you see the Riserva, which you probably see right here, more than 20 months age. That is actually the king of the cheese. That's the one you want to get because it has all the flavors have come through and expressed themselves. Now, if you visit a cheese shop in Italy, they will have Grana from every age and every region. Most of the region where Grana is made is in the North Valley of the north of the Po, which basically about, I would say 70% of the production is in the Lombardy area, Piacenza, Monza, Brescia. Some is done in Piedmont, but not much. But some is done in the Veneto region. But most of the Grana comes from the area of Lombardia. Now, what sets this apart is green valleys, wonderful pasture, creates wonderful cheese, creates a wonderful milk that gets turned into wonderful cheese. Hold on. You guys don't want to know about the export. It's that's the numbers. It's the number one exporter in the U.S. Fattoria Cremona is actually one of the co-op part of the group, the consortium of Grana Padano. Actually, the president of the consortium was the owner of Fattoria for the longest time. Now he's stepped down, but they promote the product. They like to make sure that the values are there, and we start again. We start with great, fresh milk that's unalterated, becomes great, wonderful cheeses. Just like wines. You cannot make a good wine out of bad grapes. You cannot make good cheese out of bad milk. So, I think I cover everything on the Grana side. Now, when you buy Grana, one of the things you should always notice, always make sure that even when it comes pre-cut, always the label says Grana Padano on it, because if it doesn't have that and it says Grana style, that's not Grana Padano. That's a fake. If he says Italian Grana, it's not Grana Padano. If he says Grana from Wisconsin, it's not Grana Padano. So, and why is that important? Can somebody tell me that, Jeremy? Why is that important to know the origin of the product?
Well, like we've said from the very beginning, these are terroir-driven products. And when going back to prosciutto, there are prosciuttos, there's decent prosciutto made in the United States, but it's not prosciutto di Parma. There's other prosciuttos from Italy too. So we have to be careful about, we've all gone, Kraft Parmigiano, I'm just going to say it, not the green, when we were kids, they taught us the green, that it's Parmigiano, it makes it sounds like it's from Italy. It's not from Italy. And it's important to remember too, that when you buy an Italian sounding product, it's a detriment to the Italians who make the real product. So it is very important to trace it.
And I want to say, Grana, has a famous known cousin called Parmigiano Reggiano. Grana and Parmigiano are very distinct cheeses. Mm-hmm. Let's put that in terms, because I hate the fact that people say, "Oh, but I like Parmigiano better because it's more expensive," or "I like Parmigiano better." You cannot. They look the same, but they're not the same. They're not the same because the milk is different. You have skim milk and not full milk. It's not the same because the terroir is different. It's not the same because some of the curing rooms are located in other parts that, so it cannot be the same, because I'm from New York. I have a different attitude than you guys from Texas. We're all humans, but there's a difference.
Well, and Shannon, if you're done with the, Francesco, if you're done with
I'm done.
That you want to end the share screen. At our house, Francesco, we use Parmigiano, and I know we're not talking about Parmigiano Reggiano tonight, but we use Parmigiano Reggiano exclusively for grating. Whereas if we want to do, one of our favorite desserts is Grana Padano with some traditional balsamic vinegar from Modena or Reggio Emilia, we prefer, and our girls too, we all prefer, this is our kind of dessert cheese. So they're all great cheeses. They just have different applications. What did you guys think about the Grana Padano? Was there anybody?
Jeremy, a question.
Dale, and guys, Dale Robertson, you all know Dale is one of our local food people. I'll just put it at that. Food and wine people.
I spend a lot of time in the Valley Grana, in the Alps, right by the French border. I cycle a lot there.
Yes.
The Grana name for the valley connected to the cheese in any way? I've always been curious about that. You can certainly buy the cheese there because it's probably a marketing thing. But any thoughts on that, my friend?
No, grana. By the way, grana means the grain, and in this case, Grana Padano is a category of Italian cheeses called formaggi grana. You know, in the formaggi grana, you actually have Montasio and Piave, because when they age, they form tyrosine crystals in the texture. You know, it looks like you're crunching on things, which actually is funny because prosciutto di Parma gets the same crystals. You know, everybody thinks is salt. It's not salt. It's actually amino acids from the feed that they get, and that's the flavor that gets into the grana and the other cheese. So no, grana comes from the size, the type of pasta the cheese is made. You know, it has on. Italy, locations in Italy have cheeses that take name from the location they're made, but in this case, the Grana Padano did not take the name from there.
But the famous abbey is very close to Milano, right?
Yes, it is. It is in the Cremona area. Actually, Cremona, Piacenza, Brescia, those are mostly the heartland of Grana Padano.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, thank
Any
you for
other questions?
clarifying, because my friends in my part of Italy, like to take credit for Grana Padano, but it is simply a name that's the same.
No. Grana Padano started from one area, but he expanded throughout the valley, the Po Valley. So, you know, initially it was called Formaggio di Grana. You know, it didn't have a specific formaggio. Was a very generic name for it, you know. But then it became Grana Padano because of the Padano defines the Po Valley, and that's the identification they have. They have a similar cheese north of that in the Trentino Alto Adige. They call it Trentin Grana. You know, it's totally different flavors, totally different. You know, it looks the same, but because of the terroir, it's a different product.
So how did the Reggiano Parmigiano people do a better job of marketing?
Well, you know, I have to tell you one thing. In right after the U.S. Republic was formed, Thomas Jefferson went to Parma, and he was there, and he saw prosciutto di Parma. He saw this Grana style cheese. It was not called Parmigiano or Grana, and he brought it back into the U.S. because he wanted to be the basis of the agricultural future of America. You know, and in reality, he realized quickly that it was not in Monticello. It looks like Parma hills, but it doesn't feel. You know, the terroir is not the same. You know, that's. You know, so they're very unique in staying in the area. Hey, Italy has a lot to offer. You know, and those two are the best items here.
Yes, it does.
And wine-wise, you know, you can have a Gattinara with Grana Padano. You can have Franciacorta with Grana Padano. You know, will marry well. And the fact that it's a versatile cheese, like Jeremy says, you know, it could be used for savory dishes and for sweet dishes. I mean, I have people make ice cream with Grana Padano. It marries well with a lot of flavors. I personally prefer it by itself, but you know what? It's a cheese that fills and makes a lot of people happy.
Guys, when you go to Franciacorta in Melania, who's another one of our wine professionals, Melania Spagnoli, when you go to Franciacorta, they don't have Parmigiano Reggiano with their Franciacorta. They have they do Grana Padano, and it's delicious. I mean, Parmigiano Reggiano isn't even on the radar. So just to give you guys an idea of what a coveted cheese this is. Anybody else want to jump in with questions or thoughts or impressions, or how many people had Grana Padano before? A lot of people. Okay, a lot of people had Grana Padano.
Even the chef had Grana Padano before.
Well, and Giancarlo uses. I've had huge, long conversations with Giancarlo about Grana Padano. it's incredible to think, Francesco, you and I, who are the oldest people on this call, for sure, and what we think about 10 years ago, nobody knew what Grana Padano was, maybe 20 years ago. Today, Grana Padano is really on a rise. Of course, Guy, you knew because you were out buying wine in Italy, but and talking to people about wine in Italy.
But Jeremy, what's funny is, like I said before, Grana Padano was imported in the U.S. Right after the birth of the nation. It became very popular, believe it or not, in the 1800s. I mean, it wasn't called Grana Padano at the time, but the cheese that came from that region, that basically was the forefather Grana Padano, was always been in the U.S. But as right after World War II, what happened is, with a lot of product, due to the disruption of World War II, they lost their way into the country, and they came back much after. I mean, in the 80s, I remember looking for specialty foods in New York. You think New York would be the capital mundi, and it would be difficult even to find an espresso. I had to take a train for an hour and a half into Brooklyn in order to have a good espresso. Then 5 years later, it was the norm. Everybody had espresso. You know what I mean? But the same thing with Grana Padano. I mean, Grana Padano was it's always in some specific markets, like in the New York market. Grana Padano has always been present. It's always been there, and it has a great following because of the flavor that covers a lot of parameters of, and it's actually easygoing cheese because kids like it. There's nothing.
Our kids love Grana Padano. Our kids love it.
Anything else?
Anybody have any? I know
I
Francesco's
see a question here in the chat.
Yeah, there is one.
Asking, can I use Grana Padano for cacio e pepe?
No, because if you make cacio e pepe and again the chef or your friend who's Roman will get very upset.
It would be Grana e pepe at that point.
And that was that would be Grana pepe. Cacio is a typical Roman dish. You can make, you can sub anything if you want. I mean, I was making carbonara a couple of nights ago, and the only thing I had was Grana Padano, and I thought it was going to work out. It worked out, but it's not the same feeling to it. The saltiness of that cacio romano has to be in the cacio pepe. So you can actually blend it because it cuts into the flavor and makes it a little more mellow. But you cannot. So there's some regional recipes that you cannot mess around with.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like Jeremy said in the beginning, Schwartz says that real Italian cooking is the South. Yes, it's the South, but the South likes to use a lot of ingredients that come from the North. And
sure.
Many years ago, Grana Padano was the unifying force of the peninsula. Everybody had Grana Padano in the table.
Lupo.
Really good. Guy, do you have jump in, Guy?
Buonasera.
Say.
Hey, I would like to add to the discussion a little bit because we're talking about the wines and the foods and the PDO, and I go back before there was a DOCG.
Yes.
When there was only the DOC, and it was in the 1950s when the foods started becoming the DOC. It wasn't until the 60s. I think I saw 1963 in the presentation for Grano, but that was also the time they brought wine into the fold of the DOC. So Italians think with their stomach before they think in the glass. So
that's
anyway, it's
a good.
It is so cultural for Italy, and of course I've known Grano for many years and enjoy the foods. This has been fun, but I need more food over here. Yeah.
Well, I know, and Jeremy's going to take care of that end.
There's more food coming. Hey,
I'm already on the rosé. Am I ahead of the program or?
We'll get you. We're going to get there. We're going to get you there,
I'm
guys.
just going to have one more comment.
It's almost gone now too. So
I'm going to have one more comment to add to this. There's a few things that unite us as different people from different cultures. One is music. Me and Jeremy understand that aspect of it. But the other thing is food. Without food, there is no family. the importance of food in every day is not just because of eating, but it's an exchange of ideas. It's an exchange of, there's so much going on when you're sharing food with people. I mean, I've sat in tables where no language was spoken, but when good food came to the table, people understood what was going on. So, you may not be able to speak or understand what they're saying, but you understand where they come from by the food that they offer you. And that's the key to the Italians. The Italians, we have many nations in ourselves. We have many way of thinking, but at the end of the day, when we sit down and have a nice glass of wine, a wonderful piece of cheese, there's nothing better in the world. And thank you very much for everything else today.
Hey guys, let's all raise it. Francesco, it's great to see you.
It's great to see
I miss you, man. I mean, it was like in January, I think we did an event together.
Yes.
I can't wait till we can do, have a glass of wine again together. Thank you so much for this great presentation. We miss you in Houston.
Grazie,
Guys,
Francesco.
A favorire, as we say, tutti a tavola.
Buon appetito.
We're going to get to that. Good night.
Grazie, grazie
Maurizio,
Francesco.
grazie, ma non dimenticare il video dello chef, per
Andiamo
favore.
Bye, Francesco. Miss you, man.
Buongiorno a tutti, sono Claudio Sadre, ristorante Sadre a Milano. Siamo qui per celebrare la settimana della cucina italiana nel mondo e grazie a Fattoria Cremone e Grana Padano, consorzio del Grana Padano, dedichiamo queste ricette che stiamo preparando oggi per la cena virtuale che si svolgerà a Houston in occasione di questa manifestazione con il patrocinio della Camera di Commercio italiana di Houston e l'ambasciata italiana di Houston. Vi ringrazio e a presto, buon divertimento. Una ricetta molto semplice, però è un aperitivo veramente molto divertente e piacevolissimo. Si fa con un minimo sforzo. Il prodotto principale è il grana padano. 10 mesi va bene, però potreste farlo anche con una riserva particolare. Sono delle palline di grana padano fritte, molto soffici, con una maionese al tartufo bianco e delle sfere di carne cruda di bra a completare questo nostro piccolo aperitivo. Maizena, grana padano, maionese tartufata e salsiccia cruda di bra. Bene, procediamo. Facciamo un impasto un po' compatto, vedete? Però è un prodotto veramente incredibile. Facciamo dei salsicciotti così.